Hello. Let's make a start. Two things.
Hello.
One is I'm recording this.
Let's make
And this will also be on YouTube Live. I think one challenge of some students in our school is downloading and using Zoom. So I'm also putting this on YouTube Live. And maybe in this way, people will be able to use or join. Okay, I'm going to report to the cloud now. And today we're going to try to write a speech. Now, when we met yesterday, and we were looking at, I think, pages 78 and 79. Let's see, it might not be this one. Yeah. So we were looking at pages 78 and 79 yesterday. We were reading a speech. Repeat after me, speech. And we were looking at some of the things inside a speech. And today we'll try to write a speech. So keep your eye on pages 78 and 79. Now I'm going to share with you this. That is last year, Hong Kong DSE, paper 3, which is listening, and it's part B2, which is the difficult section. Okay. So on your reading and listening papers, there is a B1 and a B2, and you have to do one of them. B1 is the easy section, B2 is a difficult section. If you do B1, you cannot score all of the marks that are possible for B2. For example, if B2 counts for 100 marks, B1, you can only score a maximum, I think, 70% of B2. So, you'll continue to practice B1 and B2 papers for the rest of your secondary school stay, and you'll have your choice of B1 and B2 papers. So we have our past paper. We have our textbook. And I'm at the Google Classroom now. And let's try task 10. Okay. So we're going to task 10. Here we are, task 10. Okay. Task 10 is introductory speech. Write an introductory speech for the discussion on the current state of cinema using information from the B2 data file and your notes. Write around 200 words. I'll say it again. We're on task 10. Write the introductory speech for the discussion on the current state of cinema using information from the B2 data file and your notes. Write around 200 words. Okay, so we have to use information from the B2 data file. Here we are. This is the first task. On which page can you find more information on task 10? I'll say it again. On which page of the B2 data file will you find more instructions for task 10? And again, look through this file right here. When you have an answer, let me know. So go through this file. Your job is to find more instructions for task 10. First assignment.
Rồi. Cô Tía ơi. Ủa cầm ẩn á.
Please type the page number here in the chat. Okay. Do we have any idea? You should be looking through B2 data file, and you're looking for more instructions for task 10, writing an introductory speech. This is the data file. This is the last page of a data file, page 11. Page 4, ooh, moon. Yes, excellent, moon. I'm giving you a thumbs up. Thumbs up, moon. Okay. So boys and girls, whenever we are doing the integrated task of a listening paper, that is whenever we are doing part B of a listening paper, you can almost always find the instructions for the tasks in the data file on the page following the note-taking sheet. I'll say it again. In part B of a listening paper, you almost always find the instructions for the listening tasks on the page following the note-taking sheet. Let me just write that down. In part of a listening paper, almost always find the instructions for the part B tasks on the page following the note-taking sheet in the data file. So here we are on page 4 of a data file, an email from Ringo Chow to Nico Lin. So I'm going to share with you a Google Doc. All of you can edit this Google Doc. I'm going to give each of you a page on the Google Doc. So this is Dr. Wu. This is my page. I'm going to insert page numbers. And then I'm going to create a break. The next page is Benson's page. Benson, you are working on page 2. Carmen, you're working on page 3. Bobby, you're working on page 4. Henry, you're working on page 5. Kaylee, you are working on page 6. Mandy, you're on page 7. Moon, page 8. Ken Chow, page 9. Fancy, page 10. Who's Yilam Wong? Is that who? Yilam. Who is Yilam? Yilam Wong. Yilam, hello. Oh, she's gone. And Pansy, who has the Chinese name? Who are you? Okay. So first things first, you have to locate the instructions for task 10 on page 4. Okay. What should you do? I'll say it again. Find the instructions for task 10 on page 4 of the data file. Note down what you must do. Okay. The first things first, take notes here. Those are your instructions. Here, I'll make it really big. So go through page 4 of the data file and find the instructions for task 10. And then note down what you have to do. Okay. Here, I'll help you. I'll put it on each person's page. Let's not actually do that. So on each person's page, note down what you have to do. Sorry about that. Oh, we lost someone here. Carmen, you're over here. Sorry, guys. Some problems with the formatting. I'll fix the formatting. You guys start looking for the instructions and noting down what to do. Yeah, thank you, Ken. You know what to do. Yeah, Henry, you're right there. Is that you, Henry, on page 5? Benson, Bobby, Carmen. Oh, Chloe. Okay, Chloe. Chloe, I'm going to put you on page 11. Chloe. So please do the work on page 11. And you want to look over here. Just take 2 minutes and then we'll review. Just note down what you have to do on page 4 for task 10. So Moon, in which paragraph do we find the instructions for task 10? Yes. The instructions for task 10 are in paragraph 4. The key words are the introductory speech. So the instructions for task 10 can be found in paragraph 4 of page 4 of your data file. What should you do? One sentence tells you what to do. There's one sentence that is very important. It tells you what you have to do next. You might want to write that sentence down in your Google Doc. There's one important sentence. Henry, I don't know if we are going to write a speech. We're planning to write a speech right now. So task 10 requires us to write a speech. But we can't write a speech if we don't know what we're writing the speech about and if we don't plan. So we're taking the first steps to writing a speech. Okay, so Carmen has the idea. Here we go. Thank you, Carmen. Now, this sentence here, start, is the most special sentence in the paragraph because it's an imperative sentence. That is, it's an order. You don't see the subject of the sentence. For instance, in the first sentence, the subject is you. In the second sentence, the subject is the theme. In the third sentence, the subject is I. But there's no subject in the fourth and final sentence. Actually, the subject is you, but it's an order. It's an instruction. So you, Carmen, you, Henry, you, Moon, you, Dr. Wu, start by looking at the Film Talk Forum, our WhatsApp group, as well as the notes you took from the video conference I had with Mira. So I'm going to write this down in my note sheet. So as soon as I can do that. Okay, so I'm going to write this down on my Google Doc. Look at Film Talk Forum. Two, look at WhatsApp group. Look at video conference notes with Mira. So we just found out what we have to do next. Where do we find these things? Ready? Now we go back to the table of contents. The table of contents is on page 2. So this is table of contents. You can repeat after me, table of contents. Table of contents. So it's a table. That is, it's not a table that you eat dinner on. It's a table that puts or organizes information. So you have 3 columns and rows, 8 rows. And you look at the table of contents and you try to find the pages of the information that you need. Excuse me. So, for instance, who are we looking at here? Benson, on what page is the Film Talk Forum? Benson, on what page is the Film Talk Forum? Bobby, on what page is the WhatsApp group? Chloe, on what page is the note sheet? Video conference with Mira note sheet. Okay. Henry, I didn't ask you, but what is on page 5? So Bobby says pages 10 and 11, the WhatsApp group. Okay. All right. I agree, Bobby. I see WhatsApp group. I see pages 10 and 11. Okay, now Henry's saying page 5. All right, he sees Film Talk Forum. And he sees page 5. Okay, now we're communicating. And then on what page is the note-taking sheet? Page 7. It's the note-taking sheet from the video conference. Okay. Yeah, I think it's not page 7. It's not. It's page 3. See, you see notes here, but this, you see notes here, and you see video conference. So that's page 3. I want to write that down. Now this is what I want you to do. There's a problem. There's actually a clear problem. If you take a look at task 10, look at all these lines. Introductory speech. We don't have too many instructions. So I want you to go through the Film Talk forum, the WhatsApp group, and the video conference notes, do you find any more instructions for task 10 in any of these documents? I'll say it again. Look through the documents. Which document, if any, has more instructions for task 10? Okay. So take 2 minutes, look through the data file and see if you find anything. Are there any more instructions? Anything? Page 6, page 7. Okay, let's take a look. We're back. Ultimately, there isn't much for us to go on, not too many instructions, so it might be helpful to find other instructions. Okay, so you see page 6 and page 7. Okay. So Carmen, did you find anything on page 6 that might help us to structure the speech? And Benson, did you find anything on page 7 to help you to structure the speech? Okay, there might not be anything else to help us with writing the introductory speech. So we'll just have to go with what information we have. So I'm going to go back to page, I'm going back to the question. And so I'm writing an introductory speech for the discussion on the current state of cinema. Okay, so I'm just going to note that down. Okay, introductory speech on the current state of cinema. That might be a key phrase for me to remember. Now I'm going to go back to the instructions on page 4. Finally, you will be giving the introductory speech before the discussion, which will take place on the stage at the cinema after the screening of Electronic Durian. The theme for the discussion is the current state of cinema. Okay, so the theme of my speech is the current state of cinema. Okay, so it seems like this phrase is really important. Okay, it's really, really important. Even if you don't know what the phrase means, you might be able to guess similar words. Okay. So quickly, what's another word for current? Or what's a similar word for current? And what's a similar word for cinema? What are related words? This might help you in searching for information. Anyone? What's another word or phrase that has the same meaning as current? And what's another word or phrase that has the same meaning as cinema? Now, good, Carmen. Right now. Excellent. All right, the current, that means right now. All right, that is right now. And then, what is cinema? If you take a look at my screen, there's a word here somewhere on this page that is similar to cinema. And then there's another word. Yes, film. And what's another word for film? What's another word? Good, okay. So, right now, how are films, movies? Okay. So why don't we go through the Film Talk forum and the WhatsApp group and note down important information about the current state of cinema. How about Benson, Bobby, Carmen, Chloe, and Henry? Look through page 5 and find information about the current state of cinema. Kaylee, Ken, Mandy, Moon, Pensy, look through pages 10 and 11 and find and note information on the current state of cinema. Let's take 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes, go to your document and find information and then write it down. Take another minute. Okay, let's go back. Let's see what we can find. Let's make it a bit smaller. What kind of information? Oh, Benson, I don't see anything. Okay, good, Carmen. There's something about virtual reality. Okay, actually, there's a lot about virtual reality. There is a lot to write about virtual reality. Okay, excellent. Oh, Bobby. Yes, there's a lot to write about virtual reality. There's a lot to write about that. Yes, good, Moon. Good, Ken. Virtual reality. Okay, that's one thing that we can write a lot about. So now let's be more specific. What can we say about virtual reality? I'm going to page 5. What can you tell your audience about virtual reality? Okay. Virtual reality. Yes. You can see everything all around you that might be worth noting down. It's a great annotation. Who was annotating? There's also another important piece of information here in what little Alexi said. I'll say it one more time. Okay, one, you know it's about cinema. It's about virtual reality. It's about you. But there's something else here that's important to mention in little Alexi's post. About virtual reality. It answers the question, how? How do you see everything all around you? Anyone? Okay. I'm going to just draw your attention to this. You may have no idea what it is. I'm just going to draw your attention to this. One more thing too, before we finish with page 5, is there's some talk about cinema here. Repeat after me, cinema, cinema. So they are talking about cinema, cinema, cinema. They keep talking about cinema. They're talking about something that might be important for your speech, but it's not about virtual reality. Excuse me, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. Okay, so there's something on page 5 about cinema that's important to include in your speech. I'm just going to write that down. Something about cinema on page 5. All right. Now let's go to pages 10 and 11. Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. We start seeing some words that we saw on page 5. We see VR. We see headset. We see 360. We see 360. So this seems to be important information. So what are some things about VR that we should note from pages 10 and 11? Note it down. What are some things to note about virtual reality on pages 10 and 11? Oh, good, Benson. Humans go to the cinema to share their experiences. Yeah, I think that's from page 5. Yeah, that's a good one. You're on the right track, Benson. I'm going to just take that and put it over here. Yeah, totally rocks. Okay. Yeah, nice, Henry. Okay. Totally rocks. Okay. Some good words there. Okay. There's a lot of information about virtual reality on pages 10 and 11. A lot. I'll give you an example on page 10. So this is the name of a system. Janus 360 VR headset system. Okay. Janus VR 360. Is that it? Janus VR. Janus 360 VR headset system. Janus VR 360 headset system. Okay. Full 3D 360 degree experience. Full 3D. Live the movie. So I'm just adding more details to what we found on page 5. We found this on page 5, and on page 10, we find more details. Okay, good. But what about page 11? There's a lot of stuff going on here. I'll try to help you. First things first. Mira says, this is all stuff, yes, to include in your speech. Okay. And what's one thing to include in your speech? The technology is cheap. That's good. The technology is cheap. I'll try to draw all the references to VR for you. VR, whoop, that's not, I want a straight arrow. VR, this, VR, that's, VR, this, VR, it, VR, it, VR, innovations, the technology, this type of thing. It's really exciting. So you can see VR is described in these messages. We'll take 5 more minutes and then we'll finish. Yeah, something about big budgets, Carmen. Now, VR is not expensive. It's not expensive. But there's something about big budget. There's something about big budget. There's something about big budget. Now, Carmen, I'm going to draw some arrows. The technology is cheap. Do you see that Mira says you're wrong? Ringo thinks this. VR is expensive. Mira says you're wrong. Ringo, you're wrong. Then Mira says the technology is cheap. Okay? Ringo thinks the technology is expensive, but it's actually cheap. But there's something to include about big budget blockbusters. Do you see the word is used twice? There's actually something important about big budget blockbusters. There's something about it. Something about big budget blockbusters. Big budget blockbusters. It's a tough one. Few more minutes and we'll finish. It is cheap. Yep, that's right. Yeah. Something about big budget blockbusters. Okay. Something about this. Okay. I'll leave you with one last thing. Focus on this expression. It's an idiomatic expression. What does this sentence mean? Play it safe. What is a big budget blockbuster? And what is it playing? Is it playing basketball? Is it playing football? No, it has a different meaning. And once you understand that meaning, that's what you want to write down. I'll say it again. Always play it safe is an idiomatic expression. It means something else. So once you figure out what that expression means, you will know what to write down about big budget blockbusters. Okay, so we're out of time. Let me propose something for us. I think the next time we meet, we're supposed to do listening next week. And I think what we can do is actually listen to the recording for 2019 DSE recording. And we can take notes here. Okay. So we'll take notes and then we'll start constructing this speech. I'll say it again. The next time we meet next week, we'll try to listen to this part B2 and we'll take notes and then we'll start to construct our speech. Any questions? Okay. So I'm going to set a time, hopefully for Monday, according to our timetable, and I'll send it to our group in a minute. And we'll do the listening, and then we'll finish writing, or we'll start actually writing our speech. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now. And stop the share.